welcome to Project Zion podcast. This is Climate Brewing, and I'm Susan Oxley from Seattle, Washington. My friend Dr. Corinne Unger from Brisbane, Australia is chatting with me today. Corinne is a research fellow at the University of Queensland and an expert in the field of risk management and strategies. She added a passion for social science to her background as an earth scientist. And she worked in the mining industry and government before moving now into the field of research into socially responsible mining and mine closures. I first met her years ago in Australia and lost contact with her after my ministry in Australia ended. Well, Corinne and I met at the 2025 World Conference, which was a historic conference. We ordained our first woman prophet president, Stacey Cram. We ordained 6 new, young, vibrant, passionate apostles. And I think that that's going to be a wonderful addition to the Council of 12. And there were a number of resolutions passed, including 3 climate resolutions. And Corinne, since you are, well, I should let you say hello first. Welcome.
Hi,
good to have you with us.
Hi, Susan. Thank you. It's good to be here.
I do want to ask you about how you perceive those 3 climate resolutions, because you are an expert in environmental science, in the social aspects of environmental science. And I would be interested in how you would assess those 3 climate resolutions and the passing of them.
So, I guess to provide a bit of context, I was involved in a stewardship team in Australia a while back. I've actually lost track of time, but when this was. But in Queensland, we formed a Queensland Earth Stewardship team, and we planted native gardens around the church, and involved a number of people who had expertise in different aspects of that, and it was a fun period of time. And then there was an Australian Earth Stewardship team led by Pat Robinson, and Tim Prescott was involved. And in Queensland, we had Dina Scott, who sadly passed away since then. But there was a vigorous little group that were passionate about Earth Stewardship matters, and the church walking the talk, I guess, having a stewardship focus, and how do we translate that into action? So for a few years, that focus was on what are we doing with our properties, our land, our reunion grounds, campgrounds. And I was also on the Tiona board, so the reunion grounds, to give advice on environmental matters. And so for one reason or another, we travelled around to different congregations, and we looked at what they were doing, and so fruit and veggie gardens and various at that scale. And to be honest, I don't think the broader climate agenda was perhaps in the background. We were just kind of acting locally, as it were, on issues. I think there was definitely conversation about alternative energy and solar and some of the issues that have been raised in the motions at conference. So just then there was a gap, and then I did my PhD, and life took over. And so on coming to conference, I was very encouraged by the 3 motions that were put. So there was the Earth Stewardship Affirmation, there was the Climate Emergency Fossil Fuel Reduction, and there was a Climate Change Emergency Call. So coming from different groups, Earth Stewardship Team, the Greater Pacific Northwest, and the Human Rights Team. And I love the way they were sort of complementary yet and overlapping, but also had a different emphasis. So at first I thought, oh, is this just a matter of scale? You know, is the stewardship team really focused still at the congregational level and the mission centre, and that the emergency is global, and the human rights sort of is somewhere in between, because it's looking at community and societal relationships with the climate emergency that are both local and sort of intermediate. So I was trying to, I guess, overthink it, and perhaps when I first saw it, and think, oh, how can I relate this to what I did in my PhD, which was on I studied slow developing risk, social and environmental risk, so how organisations, how risk develops slowly. And anyway, that aside.
So why would you think you were overthinking
it? because I'm an academic.
I'm teasing you. I'm acknowledging your expertise. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, what I was actually trying to look, I also am a very practical person. So I'm also looking, how are we going to apply this,
Yeah.
So first of all, it was good to see that there had been a prior process to prioritise motions that were being put to the conference. I was really impressed that pre-planning had been done, because that elevated some of these over others, and so it gives you an indication of a sense of, it's an engagement process that says this, we think this is important. And so I really liked that the G5 climate emergency sort of was prominent, and that shaped how they were discussed in sequence and approved or otherwise amended. So for me, that was the first World Conference I've ever been to, so I had no idea what went on. So this is how ignorant I am. So please understand that I'd always heard about them, but never knew how it proceeded. So I, looking at it from afar, I guess I thought it was a dry sort of conference where a few voices dominated, but when I went there, I felt like I belonged, and there was this really strong sense of belonging. And
good. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think seeing these 3 resolutions felt like, the things that are important to me are important to other people too.
The church cares.
So I think for a long time we didn't, and while I don't want to dwell on our campground challenges, but sometimes we've had people managing those sites that are completely incompatible with what we would like. So, and that was sort of part of, I guess, some disenchantment along the way. So,
of course.
Yeah, so I was re-inspired and reinvigorated. So that's really a positive thing. Yeah. And you're to be commended, because you've led the charge on one of these, and they are complementary. And I've actually drawn a little diagram showing how they're interrelated, because I'm trying now to, even though it's none of my business, trying to work on an implementation plan.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's everyone's business. I'd love to hear your implementation plan. This is great. We need this.
Yeah, I mean, I can, because I have got a little bit of a plan of how, over the next few years, before the next conference, there's a way of bringing together the 3 groups and sort of creating a bit more energy around each of the activities, and particularly where they are directly aligned, where you should be working together on them, but without wanting to dictate those relationships, because each group has its own kind of objectives, but they do align in so many places that I do think would be, even if it was a 6-monthly Zoom meeting or something, that where you get together and say, well, this is what we've done, this is what we're stuck on, this is where we need some help, has anyone got any ideas on this? And just that kind of collaborative open space, we all want, X to come out of this, and we know in 3 years we're going to be held to account. What have we done? How have we moved this forward as a church? And how has it engaged more widely? Like, how have the octopus tentacles gone out and grabbed everybody who has an interest and brought them in? Because I feel like that's really the opportunity to re-energize around these issues, and because a lot is already happening. It's not as if people are passive around these issues, but it's almost like you just need a bit of coordination to turn the switch on and bring things to life, so, and just make the efforts of a few more powerful by drawing on a wider network. So,
I would love to hear about your implementation plans.
Well, it's just a little bit of a draft, but I just started with each resolution. I said, what are they trying to achieve? And
No, I'm just curious about your ideas. It doesn't have to be a finished product. Just share your brainstorming with me.
Yeah, sure. It's like breaking down a task into smaller stages, so you can have little small accomplishments heading towards it instead of seeing something as big and difficult. And those small accomplishments can feed into things that are other the other resolution needs help with. It's like then they can be punctuated with these 6 monthly catch-ups. So you can be working separately and then come together and separately, and then it'll generate its own energy in that, not everything is known at this point in time, and to map out 3 years and think that that's exactly what has to happen is false. It's really just get the framework there, have the first 12 months mapped out, and then it will create its own momentum because everyone will know, oh, this is how we do it. But again, it's not me telling you how to do it. It's about you learning from each other and saying, oh, this is possible. We can do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't want to sound like I'm coming in to try and dictate anything. It's about a facilitator, sort of facilitator role.
Yeah, that's great. So what did you see as some of the top priorities? I mean, we can't implement all of that stuff from all 3 resolutions at the same time. What would you, in your opinion, what would you say are some of the top priorities from those 3 resolutions?
Well, and at least 2 of them, it was about joining the call with other groups. And so I think there's a need to identify the global, national and local organisations that you want to be aligned with. So that's a bit of a task in itself. And then you have to draft that communication. So if you want to join with them, what are you actually going to say? And I've also, Jenny Robinson's also offered to help, on the communication side. So there's things there that we can, other expertise we can draw on. And then, so this is just an example of how to break down the task. So then you draft the communication, and there might be a need to get that approved or circulated, engaged with others so that there's a general consensus, because at each time you engage or seek someone's approval, you're actually involving them, and it helps to build strength around the action. So, and then sending letters or emails or arrange to meet virtually with some of these organisations might help to communicate it. So rather than just a letter or an email saying, we're with you, we agree. You might talk to them, say, how could we work together? Is there one thing, could there be an event, where we're there with you, side by side? And then following up on opportunities, and then also preparing some sort of summary report. So in each of these results, there's a need to sort of round it out and say, well, this is what we did and this is what we learned, and a reporting back process. And that might be reporting to back at these 6 monthly Zoom meetings, but also to World Conference in 3 years' time. And so then I go through, you want to support communities most vulnerable to the impacts. Okay, so identify the vulnerable communities that you might want to support, develop a plan, and then feedback, and then set up meetings with. So it might be that you have communities close to where you live, say in Seattle, that are vulnerable because of flood risk, or, for example, or it might be that we go to Pacific countries and say, which of our member congregations in these countries are having to relocate communities because sea level's rising? It's like, at what level do you want to get involved in this? So we sort of have to apply some practical scale, but also where can our efforts be of most use? So those of us who live in developed countries, there are resources, there is insurance, there are other support frameworks. Should we really support those in developing countries first? That's a question that can only those involved can really answer. How to apply it, and you might just pick one congregation in one country and help them. It doesn't, and it's about making it manageable, and just treat everything like this is an example, and this is a small contribution, and this might be all that we can manage. But now we know how to do that. We can do it in many places.
One step at a time.
Yeah, so it's really about not letting it overwhelm, because it can be overwhelming. So then, and then there's call upon members, congregations to declare intent to divest from fossil fuel investments. So here's one that where it will take some time, I think, but we could be asking congregations, please evaluate the consequences of divestment. What does it mean? Because if it leaves the church with insufficient funds to do its important work, then there's got to be strategic ways of doing this. But we can also draw on the Church of England pensions fund as an example. There's other churches who are already grappling with these things. And I think reaching out to those and finding out how they did it is always a good start, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely. I agree.
But it also means that you have some evidence that it's possible, because you might be confronted with, as I was when I discussed it with someone at conference, they said, oh, well, you in Australia, you're going to suffer. Your finances will suffer because you have a lot of investment in fossil fuels in Australia. That was the implication. And I thought, I would have no idea. And the fact that somebody knows, it's interesting. It was interesting. Anyway, so.
Sure. That's something to research.
Yeah. Anyway, so some countries are going to be more dependent on others, some mission centres, and we just need to know. So in this process of discovery, it just is making them reflect on it. Even if it doesn't lead to immediate action, it's sort of a long-term plan, but it might take a couple of years to gradually sort of reduce the proportion of dependence. Even that is progress. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
like divestment is like 100% thing. So sometimes in interpreting the resolutions, we just got to see them as, okay, that's the goal. How do we get partway there at least? And because that's progress. And then declare support for a just and responsible fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. And that just posed questions for me. Oh, who's the treaty with? Who's it between? Are there treaties in progress? And I just realised I knew nothing about such treaties. But, are they federal governments? Are they, yeah. So I posed questions, so I just put that in red when I don't know what I'm talking about. So, and then I moved on to the next one, and with a stewardship team, and looked at a gap analysis to look at the resources that are already available. So when they talk about developing resources for education and study, just look at what's already out there, because there's so much. It's just about making it manageable and able to be packaged up. Yeah, and then maybe an introduction, a conclusion, a discussion point, and then just something to read. It's not, you don't have to create everything uniquely. You might pick 3 themes that you focus on over 3 years or something. It's just, again, not trying to do everything all at once, just a little bit, but in a structured way that means that at the end of it, you've got a bundle, you've got a package, you've tried it out, you've got some feedback on how it went and what you do. And the next person, if they pick it up, you've got some ideas for doing it better next time. That's the intent of the way I looked at it. Hosting colloquia, definitely some subgroup could develop the resources and make them available to others, and then they could come back and say, oh, we changed it and did that. Great, grab that. That can go into the bundle for next time.
Sure.
That sort of thing. It was really just trying to be practical, but it was also important to address every part of the resolution. I felt, to respect the thought and consideration that had already gone into them. So that was my attitude. I put a hat on and said, right, how do we do this? And I can send you this document. It's I'm not finished it, but you could just see if it's heading in a good direction or not.
Sounds great.
And I would love to talk to the other 2 groups because you have to have a willingness of all to participate in this way, and I'm sure there would be, because there's so few sometimes in these teams.
Yes, we have all, I think, recognized the fact that we were working on these resolutions independently, without consulting with each other, without knowing what each other was doing. And suddenly here we are, and we've got not just our resolution, but 2 others. And they're thinking the same way. Oh, well, we've got a resolution, but here's 2 others besides that. And we really were, I was surprised. I can't speak for everybody else. I was surprised that the First Presidency didn't see all of that and try to lump them together into one resolution. And I was worried that that might happen, because there are some differences between them and a slightly different emphasis. And I thought to try to get them all meshed together into one resolution would be so overwhelming that it would just be extremely difficult to handle and to even implement. So
And that was it. I went through that thought process too. And I said, oh, they're so similar. Why aren't they all in one? And then I realized, no, because it all could be lost. And and then I thought, no, it's good the way it's come together. It's good that we discuss them separately, because everyone has to think about the slightly different nuances in each and who it's geared towards. And that way, yeah, it was a richer conversation, honestly. And sometimes got to let democracy have its you absolutely have to let democracy have its place.
Day.
Yes. Yeah. And that was my personal realization that when I was overthinking it at the start, and then I sort of sat back, relaxed, and just watched it. I didn't even contribute to the conversation, because I felt like, oh, this is great, this is interesting, there's nothing here I disagree with, so there's no need for me to speak. And even if I did disagree with it, I haven't been involved in these resolutions. Some people here have been working hard on this for a long time, and I walked away from it for a while, so I'm just going to pick up where I can.
Well, Corinne, thank you so much. I appreciate your support for all of the 3 teams and for the resolutions, and your insight into possible avenues of implementation, some of the brainstorming you've done. I would be interested in your document, so please send it to me, and we can certainly discuss it in the climate justice team that I'm a part of. Thank you so very much. Anything else you'd like to say about World Conference or the church or anything?
I think one of the kind of surprising things is getting to know people you thought you already know. So you already knew. So that's a strange thing when you feel like you've lived with and grown up with and gone to church with as a child, these people, and you think you know them, and you come together at conference in a different setting, and you think, oh, I didn't know they were good at this, or that's helpful, or oh, really? And it was just one of those things that it was a different setting, and perhaps everyone's coming there with different purpose, but it was just lovely, really.
It was a wonderful week. There was a good spirit that prevailed the whole time, and I really did go away with a sense of hope. Now, it's the kind of hope that I like to call radical hope, that looks reality square in the face, doesn't just go optimistic about, oh, everything's fine, but looks at reality, recognizes the challenges and the difficulties, the dangers that we face, and marches right straight into it to do what we can do, one step at a time, one person at a time. And I might not be around to see the results, but that's okay. It's the right thing to do, and that's the kind of hope that I have, the hope for a future generation to have a better world.
That's great. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Corinne. It's been wonderful. I appreciate it.